devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, titled Liberation, and this is chapter 19, titled King Yayati Achieves Liberation. And today's text is text number 4. Is that right? Tasya uddaranopayam vastaha kami vichintayan vyadatta tirtam uddritya vishanagrena rodasi. Tasya uddaranopayam vastaha kami vichintayan vyadatta tirtam uddritya vishanagrena rodasi. Tasya uddaranopayam vastaha kami vichintayan vyadatta tirtam uddritya vishanagrena rodasi. Vaishnavis. Anyone else? No? Word for word translation. Tasyaha, of the she-goat. Uddarana upayam, the means of deliverance from the well. Bastaha, the he-goat. Kami, having lusty desires. Vichintayan, planning. Vyadatta, executed. Tirtham, a way to come out. Uddritya, digging the earth. Vishana agrena, by the point of the horns. Rodasi, at the edge of the well. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. After planning how to get the she-goat out of the well, the lusty he-goat dug up the earth on the well's edge with the point of his horns in such a way that she was able to come out very easily. Repeat after me, please. After planning how to get the she-goat out of the well, the lusty he-goat dug up the earth on the well's edge with the point of his horns in such a way that she was able to come out very easily. Purport: attraction for woman is the impetus for economic development, housing, and many other things meant for living comfortably in this material world. Digging up the earth to make a way out for the she-goat was a laborious task. But before accepting the she-goat, the he-goat underwent this labor. Ahogriha kshetra sutapta vitair janasya moho yam aham mameti. The union between male and female provides the impetus for gaining a nice apartment, a good income, children and friends. Thus, one becomes entangled in this material world. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for being here. Everyone got up 1 hour earlier. Daylight serving started today, eh? Yes. So we lost 1 hour, gone, finish. Can't get it back. Time gone. Right? Okay, so today's class I think we'll start off with a little bit of glorification about the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So yesterday Maharaj said, even Bhagavatam already says that Maharaj repeated that the Bhagavatam is Amala Purana, spotless Purana. And Maharaj also mentioned there are 18 Puranas, actually 18 Mukhya Puranas or main Puranas, and 18 Upa Puranas or minor Puranas. And these 18 Mukhya Puranas are divided into 3 categories. 6 Puranas in the mode of goodness, 6 Puranas in the mode of passion, 6 Puranas in the mode of ignorance. And Śrīmad Bhāgavatam sits among the 18 Mukhya Puranas, and within these 18 Mukhya Puranas, it sits among the Puranas in the mode of goodness, the 6. But what differentiates Śrīmad Bhāgavatam from all Puranas is that it is Nigama Kalpatarur Galitam Phalam. It is the what? Ripened fruit from the tree of Vedic literature. Right? Srila Vyasadeva, he actually wrote all the Vedas, he compiled all the Vedas, and then he wrote the Mahabharata, then he put the Vedas into the Vedanta Sutra, then from the Vedanta Sutra he extracted the essence, and then came out the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So we are getting the essence, we are so fortunate. right? In fact, even the Bhagavatam itself declares, Namnaganam yata Ganga, Devanam achyute yata, Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu, Purananam idam tata. Namnaganam yata Ganga. Just like how among all the rivers, the Ganga is the topmost, Devanam achyute yata, just like among all the Devas, Lord Krishna is supreme. Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu, just like among all the Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva is the topmost. So similarly, among all the Puranas, the Bhagavatam is supreme, the topmost. And this Sukadeva Goswami declares in Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse number 1. So, this is the little bit about Śrīmad Bhāgavatam that we can glorify, and it is such great mercy from Srila Prabhupada that we have the opportunity in this lifetime to associate with the Bhagavatam. It is none other than the literary incarnation of Lord Krishna. Now, Bhagavatam has got how many subject matters? 12. It's got 12 subject matters. Atra sarga visargascha sthanam poshanam utaya manvantra ishanukata nirodha muktir ashrayaha. 10 or 12? I missed it. 10, okay. I added 2 more extra. Sorry, 10 subject matters. Okay, and then sarga means what? The primary creation. Visarga relates to secondary creation. Primary creation, the Supreme Lord and His expansions do the creation, and then Lord Brahma does the secondary creation. Then comes Sthanam. Sthanam relates to the planetary systems. Poshanam talks about protection. Then after Poshanam is Utayaha, creative impetus. Manvantara, the change of the Manus. Then we've got Ishanukata, which is science of God. Then comes Nirodha, or dissolution, or going back to Godhead. Then comes Mukti, liberation. And finally, Ashraya is Samam Bonam, which is coming to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna himself. So we are now into Canto 9. Canto 9, as I said, the title is what title? Liberation. So we're talking about Mukti, which means we are very close to what? The last one, which I said just now, is what? What subject matter? Samam Bonam, which is coming very close to the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. Yes? In fact, we are into chapter 19 of Canto 9, and in about 5 chapters more, it will open up to the pastimes of Lord Krishna, will come direct to link to Canto 10. So it's been quite a journey to come up to Canto 9 itself is already a big, big achievement and great mercy from Srila Prabhupada that we have come this far. And in when we say Liberation Canto 9 begins with Shraddhadev or Vaivashvata Manu, and he comes in what Vamsa? Surya Vamsa or Soma Vamsa? Surya Vamsa. Okay? But Canto 9 finishes with what Vamsa? It starts with Surya Vamsa and then finishes with Soma Vamsa. Lord Krishna comes in Soma Vamsa. So it's actually linking up to the Soma Vamsa, getting ready for Lord Krishna's appearance. Right? So where does the transition take place? How does Canto 9, when it starts with Surya Vamsa, then flows and comes up and ends up in Soma Vamsa? So to answer that question, we got to go back to chapter 1 itself of Canto 9. Where Vaivashvata Manu, he actually at that time didn't have sons and he wanted to beget a son, and he approached Vasishtha Muni, his guru, to actually perform yagya, to beget a son. And that sacrifice, during that sacrifice going on time, the chief priest, another priest apart from Vasishtha Muni, when he was doing the yagya, Vaivashatva Manu's wife, Shraddha, she approached the priest and said, I want a daughter, not a son. Right? And she told the priest to actually chant some other mantra, and which the priest did. He chanted Vashat, and what happened? It worked. A daughter was born. Then Shraddha Dev or Vaivashatva Manu was like saying, what's happened here? Vasishtha Muni, you are actually very expert in all these yagyas. How come with all your proper chanting and all that, it didn't work? Instead of a son, I got a daughter. But Vasishtha Muni knows. He knew what happened between the wife and the chief priest. And then he said, all right, I will pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and through his powers, a son was born. No, actually, the daughter was transformed into a son. So the daughter Ila became who? Sudyumna. Right? He became Sudyumna. Right? Then Sudyumna, he grew up, became the king, and with his ministers one day and associates, he went hunting into the jungles, riding on his horse and all that. They came to the base of the foothill of Mount Meru. And there is this forest, Sukumara forest. They entered that, innocently they entered that, immediately they all got transformed to women. Because Lord Shiva had placed a curse on that part of the forest saying anybody entering here will become female. So Sudyumna now regained or came back to being a woman. Right? And he became a very beautiful woman. And Buddha, the sun of the moon god, Buddha, he became attracted to Sudyumna / Ila in the female form, and they married. And through them, they begot a son called Pururava. That's where the transition took place, from Surya Vamsa to Soma Vamsa. From Pururava, then the dynasty continues. From Pururava, then he got a son called Ayu. Then from Ayu came Nahusha. Nahusha got 6 sons. Who are the 6 sons? Yati, Yayati, Samyati, Ayati, Vyati and Kriti. 6 of them. Right? And now we are linking up to this pastime, Yayati, King Yayati. So King Yayati, of course, started ruling because his elder brother Yati, he wanted to just focus on devotional service. And when he started ruling, then this pastime begins. Right? And if we want to talk about this pastime, actually this pastime has come to a turning point. Today's verse and even the past 1 or 2 verses, it's come to a turning point where there is realization setting in Sudyumna. In King Yayati. So he is now turning towards facing Lord Krishna. He wants to actually detach. He wants to change his ways and become liberated. But if we look at the earlier pastimes of the various personalities, it is a package of various qualities that they displayed that a devotee should not follow. So if you remember the pastime that they had earlier, it was like, where did it all start? It started with the daughter of Śrīmad Devayani and Sharmista, the daughter of Vrishaparva. They were walking in the palace gardens. They wanted to actually bathe in a palace garden pond. So they were bathing, unclothed, and then they saw Lord Shiva passing. They felt, of course, wanted to respect him. They quickly came out. Mistakenly, Sharmista wears garments belonging to Devayani. And what happens at that time? Krodha, anger came out. Okay? Anger came out. Hurtful words were exchanged. That is one quality we don't want to actually pick up as a devotee. Right? Then, not only that, Sharmista then put Devayani in the well and she went away. Then comes King Yayati through providence. He then plucks her out of the well and she says, okay, you got to be my husband. But after getting out of the well, Devayani goes to the father Śrīmad, complains what happened. Now Śrīmad gets angry. He goes to Prishaparva, the father of Sharmista, and then he actually chastises. Then Devayani is given the benediction, all right, when I marry, Sharmista must become my maidservant. Right? And then she does marry. She marries who? King Yayati. Devayani. And then what happens? Lust, kama. Who displays that? King Yayati. He displays that very prominently. Because he is so lusty, and not only does he have relations with his wife, he also has relations with Sharmista. And then Devayani gets angry again. She then runs to her father again. Father gets angry again. He curses King Yayati to become what? To become invalid and become old age. Okay? And you would think a person in that situation will say, okay, I've turned a new leaf, please forgive me. He says, no, I haven't fulfilled my lusty desires with your daughter. Please give me more time. So then he compromised. The curse became like, all right, you exchange your old age with somebody who wants to give his youth. And then comes greed, lobha. King Yayati actually displays that greed, wanting to fulfill his lusty desires. He goes asking his sons, please give me your youth. Madness. Right? And then he gets it from one of his sons, Puru. He gets it and then he continues to enjoy his lusty desires. So we got kama, krodha, lobha being displayed. Then we got madness in this whole thing about just wanting to satisfy sense gratification. Then we got matsarya, we got envy. Envy in the sense that Sharmista, when she saw Devayani getting a son, she also wanted a son. And mother, finally, the whole thing is madness, moha, illusion. Okay? King Yayati is thinking that under illusion that, oh, if I can fulfill my lusty desires, then I will get happiness. Total madness. This is what the pastime was displaying, and all these personalities were teaching us not to cultivate these qualities. In fact, there's a pastime in Mahabharata where Vidura, when he was still in the royal household before the battle of Kurukshetra, he was like acting as advisor and giving good counsel to the household, especially to Dhritarashtra, because Dhritarashtra being his elder brother, Vidura was seeing that Dhritarashtra was heading towards more sense gratification, towards position of wanting to be king and siding his sons. He was giving good counsel, and in giving that good counsel, Vidura related an allegorical story. Today we are talking about an allegorical story about he-goat and she-goat. So now Vidura also gives an allegorical story to Dhritarashtra. He says there is this thick, dense jungle, forest. Okay? And there's this Brahmana who's lost in that forest. He's running here and there because he's hearing all sorts of growling, animal sounds, scary sounds coming from the forest. He's running, thick forest. He's running around, no direction. And then among all that, he is also seeing this huge demoness, fierce-looking demoness approaching him. So the Brahmana is running in the forest, and as you would have it, he falls into a pit. Just like here we're talking about she-goat being in a pit, and Devyani having fallen into a pit previously, and here this Brahmana falls into a pit. And as he is falling, as Providence would have it, his ankles got caught in creepers, and he's hanging upside down. Hasn't hit the bottom of the pit, but he's hanging upside down. Right? So visualize this. Big forest, thick dense forest, menacing demoness. He has just fallen, he's hanging upside down, and then when he comes to understand the situation, he is assessing the situation, he sees at the bottom of the well a huge big snake with the mouth wide open. Okay, that's scary. Then he looks up, he sees at the edge of the well, he sees a unique creature, a 6-faced elephant having 12 feet, menacingly looking down upon him. He can't go up, can't go down. And then the creeper that he's hanging on, he's looking at the creeper, there are black and white mice running up and down, nibbling at the creeper. So it's a matter of time they are going to eat through. How precarious the situation. Right? And then he's got all these insects biting him, growling sound of animals out there. And in trying to just come to terms of the situation, suddenly he feels a drop of honey touching near his mouth. It so happens that right directly above is this beehive with a honeycomb, and the drop of honey fell on near his mouth. So he makes the endeavor with his tongue to get the honey into his mouth. Very delicious, very tasty. Right? And then another drop falls. Same thing, very delicious, very tasty. Like that, he keeps the focus on the honey which is dropping, not on the precarious situation that he's in. So then Dhritarashtra turns around and asks Vidura, okay, nice to hear, you've told me all this, but what is the real essence, the real meaning of this allegorical story that you're telling me? Then Vidura starts explaining one by one. He says the dense forest, the thick forest represents the material world. Right? The growling, the menacing sounds of animals, that represents diseases. The demoness, the menacing looking demoness approaching, that represents old age, jara. The snake right at the bottom of the pit with the mouth wide open represents death, mrityu. Okay? And he himself, the Brahmana hanging upside down, he himself represents the Atma, the soul. And the pit represents his body. All the insects biting him represents Adi Bhautik, the miseries that we face in life. The creeper that he is hanging from, that represents our hopes, our ambitions, our desires. The honey that is dropping bit by bit, that is the temporary pleasure that we get in the material world. The black and white mice running up and down, nibbling away, they represent day and night. The menacing looking elephant having 6 faces, the 6 faces represent the 6 seasons. Having 12 feet, the 12 feet represents the 12 months in a year. Day and night, we are getting dashed with our endeavor to chase our hopes, ambitions, desires. Season after season, it is worsening. Year after year, it is getting even more worse. And we are still struggling, while death is waiting for us, we are still struggling for that little temporary pleasure that comes to us. This is the condition of the jiva, or the conditioned living entity, which has forgotten its real identity. This is the jiva which is identifying with the material world, identifying with the body. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, he very nicely sums up the situation with one line. He says, our very existence is in the atmosphere of non-existence. Material world is real but temporary. Body that we got is real but temporary. Right? So this temporary situation is really an atmosphere of non-existence. We have forgotten where we should really exist. That's why we are here. So Prabhupada says our very existence here is in the atmosphere of non-existence. And then you got to remember this allegorical story. As I said, Vidura is describing this to his brother Dhritarashtra before the battle of Kurukshetra, while Vidura was still in the household, the royal household. And while in that continuation of giving good advice, there was of course one time when Vidura told his brother, the Pandavas have come back from exile. Give them back their rightful kingdom. Don't listen to your son Duryodhana, who is offense personified. Okay? And what was the reaction? Duryodhana got very angry and he actually hurled abuses at Vidur, and Vidur left home. This was before the battle of Kurukshetra. And then he went on pilgrimage for many, many years. So the battle of Kurukshetra took place during his period of pilgrimage. He went to Prabhash, where he then found out when he was there that the Yadu dynasty had been annihilated. And then he went to the banks of the river Yamuna, where he met Uddhava. He got association from Uddhava. Then he went on to meet Maitreya Muni, who was there somewhere in that vicinity, and he got guidance from Maitreya Muni. And they met also Lord Krishna at that time, who was winding up his pastimes. And this was during that period of pilgrimage. So after the battle of Kurukshetra, Vidura then came back to the household. And now he came back for a specific purpose to liberate his elder brother Dhritarashtra. We're talking about liberation in this canto. We're focusing on liberation. And he came back specifically to liberate his elder brother. And this time, he spoke like a sadhu, no more allegorical story. This time he came with cutting words. Enough. So what are the cutting words? He tells Dhritarashtra, look at you. You've grown so old. You're living with the Pandavas, the very people who you were trying to kill just because you wanted to be king. Right? You're still attached to your desire to be king. You were born blind. Okay? Your teeth are loose. And now you're hard of hearing. Your liver is defective. You're coughing mucus. What are you still trying to do? Get out, leave. Disentangle yourself from this attachment to the material world. Be a Narottama. Be the best among men. Leave. And he takes that good advice, Dhritarashtra, finally. So he leaves. So now, back to the topic about identity. Conditioned living entities, they identify with the world, with matter. That is in the material world. So if conditioned living entities have identity, does Krishna have identity? What's his identity? Huh? Yeah, that's his position as the Supreme Lord. But what's his identity? Like we are now Atma. Okay, what's his identity? Satchidananda Vigraha. Lord Brahma actually sings in the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adi Govinda Sarva Karna Karanam. But what does Satchid Ananda mean? Sat means he is eternal. Okay? Chit means he is full of knowledge. Okay? Ananda means he is full of bliss. Okay? But his identity, he's got his Satchid Ananda. But that Satchid Ananda, it actually is categorized into three aspects. Sandhini, Samvid, Aladini. Just like in the material world, we got the three modes of material nature, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. So on that same reasoning, Lord Krishna has got three aspects of his internal energy which are separated from that Satchid Ananda. They are separated into three categories according to the function that they represent. Sandhini, Samvid, Aladini. The Sandhini aspect, the Sandhini potency, is the potency that with which Krishna exists and with which he bestows existence on everybody else. That's how we exist. The Samvid potency is the potency where Krishna is all-knowing and with which he allows everybody to know him. The Ladini potency is the potency by which Krishna experiences bliss and with which he allows us to also experience that bliss in a very minute way. Because the jiva is part and parcel of Krishna, fragmental part and parcel of Krishna. So we do, when we are purified, can become qualified to experience that bliss. But here's the reality. The soul, which is fragmental Satchid Ananda, is having a body which is Asat, Achit, Nirananda, living in an atmosphere, as what Prabhupada says, of non-existence, which is also Asat, Achit, Nirananda. So where is the compatibility? No compatibility. This pastime here that we are talking about, King Yayati and Devayani, okay, there is no compatibility between them too. Right? Anuloma, Pratiloma, marriage, we read about that earlier. Right? So, when there is no compatibility, there will be trouble. There will be no happiness. So the compatibility can only arise when we actually see ourselves as jivas, and our rightful place is to actually be in the spiritual world. But the reality is we are here today. So on one hand, as I said, we got the identity of the conditioned living entities where they identify with the body. On the other hand, I briefly described how Krishna is totally spiritual and he is Satchid Ananda. And then comes the devotees, where we are sadhakas, practitioners. Our position is, we got one foot here, we got one foot there. Correct? Right? So then there is no compatibility. Which foot do you want to lift up? Which side do you want to come? Do you want to lift up the foot that you have placed in the spiritual world and put it both into the material world? Or do you want to lift the foot from the material world and put both into the spiritual world? And for that we got to address this incompatible situation that we got. Like in the Gajendra pastime. Gajendra and the crocodile fought for how many years? 1,000 years. Okay. Gajendra's leg was trapped in the mouth of the crocodile. And this was, the battle between them was happening in water. Gajendra, elephant, is a land animal. Crocodile is a water animal. Who was winning? Why? Because the crocodile is situated in his rightful environment. Gajendra is incompatible. He became weak. Finally, what he did, no choice, what did he do? Surrendered. So our predicament, one foot in the material side, one foot on the spiritual side, the only way, if we really want to get to the spiritual world, is to surrender. Not surrender to the material world, surrender to Krishna. Right? And that surrender process starts by first identifying ourselves as Das, Das, Anudas. When we get a spiritual name, everybody anticipates to hear what is the spiritual name the candidate is going to get from their guru. Yeah, and there is a loud haribol and beating of the drums and all that. And we focus on listening on that Krishna name or Radharani name or Lord Gauranga name or Jagannath name or Nityananda's name. But we do not focus on the word that comes after the name, Das or Dasi. That is the real weight in the name. Of course, it's coming from Guru, Krishna's name or whatever is spiritual name. That's weighty. But the real weight in our spiritual name is in that word called Das or Dasi. Lord Chaitanya made this very clear. He came and declared, Gopi Bhartuhu Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Dasano Dasa. Gopi Bhartu. Bhartu means master. Okay. Who is the master of the gopis? Master of the gopis? Krishna. Okay. So, and Pada Kamalayora means lotus feet of Krishna. Our position, our identity is simply to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Krishna, the master of the gopis. And to be the master of the gopis means there has to be a turning point in our journey of spiritual consciousness. That turning point, just like in this pastime, King Yayati has said, enough, I'm fed up. All this lust, tasteless, I'm chewing the chewed. I'm making this conscious decision to change and I want to face Lord Krishna. And this was similarly declared by Mother Devahuti in the Lord Kapila pastime in Canto 3, where after Kardama Muni had left home, Mother Devahuti was with Kapila Muni at home in Bindu Sarovar, the ashram. Now, Kapila Muni is the plenary expansion of God. He could have used the snap of a finger, just taken her back to Godhead. But they were he was just there. One day, Mother Devahuti, she declares to her son, Lord Kapila, this: I am tired. I am sick and tired of the disturbances caused by my material senses. And because of my engagement with sense gratification, I have fallen into an abyss of ignorance. That declaration is the turning point. That honest declaration to God saying, I'm tired. And from that point, when Lord Kapila realized that his mother was actually desiring uncontaminated desire for self-realization, then he started revealing Bhakti Yoga. So our journey in spiritual consciousness to become self-realized or to go back to the spiritual world starts with this turning point in our life. We got to assess our life with what we are doing today. If we carry on doing what we are doing today, are we going to make it to the spiritual world? Have we already turned the corner? Or are we just, like you have nice big plate of prasadam, many different items, okay, all very tasty. Then you got that little pickle, okay. You take that little pickle, you put it on your tongue and say, blissful. Are we treating our journey in Krishna consciousness like that little pickle where instead of focusing on everything else, just instead of that total surrender, we are focusing a lot on our material path, material wealth, like here we're talking about in this purpose, economic development, housing, good income, children, friends. Are we focusing on that, or are we actually turning to Krishna and say, yeah, Krishna, I'm a grihastha, I got all these responsibilities, but please, I surrender. Put up our hands like Gajendra and say, I surrender. Show me the way. And that comes with, first, approaching Srila Prabhupada. Like Vidura, he came back like a sadhu and has cut his brother, took him on the path of liberation. Our journey starts with falling at the feet of Srila Prabhupada. We got to be honest with ourselves in the sense that, are we truly practicing Krishna consciousness, or are we just in it for namesake, just like a pickle? I'm also a Krishna, I'm also a devotee. You got to first acknowledge, your journey begins by first acknowledging you're a das or a dasi, and you want to serve Krishna, to please Krishna, not to please ourselves. Only when we embark on that journey with that kind of mood to want to be a das or a dasi, then we will be successful in going back to Godhead, where the next Canto 10 is to touch the lotus feet of Krishna, where we can actually hold his feet. Hare Krishna. Questions? Comments? Corrections? Everybody's hungry for prasadam. The question is, why is lust so strong? Why do we get caught up in licking that little drop of honey? In other words, the question is, what is blocking us from surrendering to Krishna 100%? We need knowledge. we need real knowledge. And this is where Prabhupada has given us this treasure of Krishna conscious books. It's all there. That is why Prabhupada said, read my books, read my books, read my books. The solution is all there. Okay? And the association. The association means we associate with devotees in Krishna consciousness who are more elevated than us. Association doesn't mean coming to the temple and you associate with people who are your friends and you come and socialize in the temple. But if you really want to make progress in your spiritual journey, associate with people who are elevated than you in Krishna consciousness. Then they will take you higher. Then they will help you to actually overcome this intensity of lust. Not easy. We've been going through lifetime after lifetimes, millenniums of lifetimes in this samsara chakra. Janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi. Not easy. But we got to take the privilege that we are in now. Compared to the many billions of human beings out there on this one planet called Earth, only a small, tiny, fragmental percentage of human beings are practicing Krishna consciousness on this earth. Why not the others? Because their time hasn't come. It's not that they won't get the mercy, it's just that time is separating. So we are already in a very privileged position. And as I said, we can carry on in this Krishna consciousness movement with one foot on the material side and one foot trying to be on the spiritual side. Yes, we will only partially surrender. And the other thing about the journey to actually overcome lust is we got to overcome our false ego. We got to cultivate humility. That is why the word das, it is so heavy. That is why the word dasi is so heavy. It helps us cultivate humility. But here's the problem. The longer we stay in Krishna consciousness, let's say you stay 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, not only people start addressing you as Prabhu, they start addressing you as senior devotee. Just because you stay that many years in Krishna consciousness, even though you haven't internally developed as a devotee, right? But because of the number of years you just show your face in ISKCON, you're labeled senior devotee. And what does that do to your false ego? It inflates it. Your false ego monster becomes even bigger. So where then is your foot going to be? You're going to start lifting the foot from the spiritual side because you're attaching more towards the material side. To overcome this, you got to come back to focusing on the word das or dasi. Servant of the servant of the servant. Cultivate humility. Every time that someone glorifies you, you first take it as a credit to your guru, to Srila Prabhupada. And every time when you feel that your false ego is getting inflated, your immediate thought should be, Krishna is giving me an opportunity here to actually cultivate humility. How not to allow my false ego monster grow bigger. Have I answered your question? All right, almost time. Any other questions, comments? Grantaraj, yep, question. how to deal. In other words, the question is, where you want to cultivate humility, but the person or people that you're associating with are displaying false ego, right? And therefore, stimulating you to also, attracting you to balloon your own false ego, rather than helping you develop humility, simply means you have got wrong association. Move away. So you can't lecture to that person and say, no, I am not. You'll get into an argument if you start lecturing that person. Okay? The quiet way of dealing with it is move away, look for people who are elevated and who are humble in Krishna consciousness. They are the kind of people you want to associate with. Okay? Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai.